Hello everyone, my name is Masha and today I'm going to be speed knotting this Gryffindor house bracelet. Before I get into the video, I do want to mention that there is currently a competition running until the end of January where you can win any of the house bracelets. I've already done Hufflepuff and Slytherin, and as you can see Gryffindor, Ravenclaw is next. I'll leave all the other videos linked in the description and you can win any of them. Stay tuned for the rules at the end of the video. Hello, and we are back again, this time with the Gryffindor bracelet. As you may know, I've already done Hufflepuff and Slytherin. This time I'm doing Gryffindor, and as you may guess, Ravenclaw is going to be next week. For this bracelet I used a different type of string. Here I used Captions, which I'm pretty sure is a Russian brand. I got it last time I was in Russia. I'm also in Russia currently as I'm recording this voiceover. But it's basically just cotton thread. Like, a lot of people ask me, oh, where can I get it? I'm pretty sure you can't get it outside of Russia, maybe like Ukraine, Belarus, I'm not sure. But it's not anything special. It's just like a big yarn of cotton, big ball of cotton thread. It's not like, I don't know, anything majestic or anything. But yeah, because I used a different thread here, for the previous ones I used Prism, which is a little bit thinner. The bracelet turned out much thicker and much longer than the other ones. So if the winner is going to get this, it's probably going to be a bit too big for one person's arm, just because it's very, very long, but still, it's a pretty cool bracelet nonetheless. And yeah, and the red one here is also Captions, and the black thread is, I believe, Anchor. So, yeah. I had quite a lot of trouble with this bracelet, because if you look at all the patterns, which are always linked in the description, these patterns are pretty much all consistent, and I'm pretty sure that they're also made by the same person. Well, I mean, I would guess. I'm not sure who made them exactly, because these patterns have been around for literally years. I've seen them all way back when I just started making bracelets. These patterns were already around at that point, and that was like 2010, 2011-ish. And they've been posted and reposted so many times that I have no idea who made them. But the person who did make them made Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw to be 19 strings wide, and Gryffindor is 20. You can imagine my happiness when I didn't notice that, and I assumed they were all the same amount of strings. And you know how in my alpha tutorials, if you watch them, in both of the videos that I did about alpha bracelets, I said that the first thing you do when making an alpha is you cut your strings and you count them multiple times to make sure they've got the right number of base strings. I did. I recounted this a couple of times before I sat down to make the bracelet, but I had assumed that I needed 19 strings, just like all the other ones. I didn't check for some reason, and I ended up with one string short. I was one string short for the bracelet, and I realized that while I was like in the middle of the G for Gryffindor, and I realized that my knots weren't lining up for some reason. Yeah, so that's fun. Apparently, apparently people can sort of insert bass strings, because I've talked to some other bracelet makers who have told me that they've had situations previously where they didn't have enough strings and they just inserted one, and when they saw me, what I did was I just cut it off. I just cut off all the strings and then reused them in this bracelet, so I had to do the entire triangle end and the entire beginning again. I pretty much just started from scratch, and I posted it on my Instagram story, and some people messaged me like, oh, why'd you do that? I just insert more string. So I'm gonna research that, and if I can figure out how to do that, that would save me some time next time I mess up. Yeah, if I figure that out, I will do a video on it, of course. But yeah, I found that quite frustrating with this bracelet. It's like, why does Gryffindor have to be so special and have 20 strings instead of 19? Although I'm pretty sure someone remade these, like with their own twist. Like they added, they changed some of the letters a little bit. They added, I've also seen some like hybrid bracelets that people posted, like, I don't know, Griffin Puff, or however, I don't know how you say it properly. Just like hybrid bracelets where someone is like of two houses, and they've remade them, and I'm pretty sure that the ones that have been remade are all consistent in the string in the string wideness. But yeah, I had to deal with that. That was fun. Yeah. Oh, and remember how I think in the Hufflepuff Bracelet I said that I have no idea what house my husband is? And I was kind of surprised by that because it's just, I was always so into, sorry, that was my WhatsApp. I was always so into like Harry Potter and how I never knew what house he was. I asked, apparently he's a Gryffindor, so this is for him as well, I guess. It's like a dedication. So yeah. Also, in the last video I promised that I would talk about some things that don't quite make sense to me, or just like some funny things in Harry Potter. Me and my friend, who is still quite a close friend of mine, we were in the same class growing up in school in Russia, and we were sitting one day in just some, I think it was like biology or something, and we were bored, and we were discussing Harry Potter like very quietly, and I read the books pretty much in one go. I read them all in one summer, and I read them in English because I was in America at the time and my aunt had them in English, and generally, as a rule of thumb, because I speak both English and Russian, whenever I can I just read in the original. Like any English written text I'll read in English, but I wouldn't read like Dostoevsky or something like that in English. Why would I if I can read the original? I always try to read in the original language. And my friend, he read in Russian, and we were discussing just generally Harry Potter and stuff, and somehow we came upon the discussion of what happened to all of the characters after they finished Hogwarts, which kind of spoiler alert, but also it's not that, you know, spoilery. I don't know, it's not that big of a deal, so maybe skip a few seconds if you really don't want to know, but it's not that big of a deal anyway. And turns out that he said to me something like, oh yeah, Neville, who then went on to do potions. He was a potions professor. And I'm like, hold up, no, he's not a potions professor. I'm like, why would you say he's a potion professor? Neville was a professor of herbology. And he's like, no, I am very, very much certain that he went on to do potions. I'm like, no, he did not. Why would he do potions? He hated the subject. Like, I'm not saying that Neville wouldn't be good at potions had he been taught by someone other than Snape who bullied him, but I'm just saying that it wasn't his favourite subject, like it wasn't his area of expertise, and he was very much into herbology. Why would he go into potions? He's like, no, I'm certain he went into potions. I'm like, no, I'm certain he did herbology. And basically the next day we came in, and we brought in, each of us brought in a copy of the book. And each of us were like so certain of us being right. We brought in the books. And he showed me in the Russian text, and it literally did say that he went on to become a professor of potions. I'm like, what? I opened my book, which was English, and like, he went on to become a professor of herbology. What? Why is this a thing? And turns out we were both right, because we both remembered what we had read. Just in the Russian translation, for some reason, the translator decided to change it to potions for no apparent reason. I think it was just a translating mistake, because that's not how you translate. You don't change things in a translation, you translate. So, I don't know, that was just kind of a funny thing that we did. And turns out there's quite a lot of inconsistencies like that in the Russian text. I mean, I'm pretty sure in other texts as well, but like specifically in Russian, they've now changed that. They have now a completely different translation, but at that time, I don't know, like 10 or whatever years ago, there was just like this one translation that was prevalent, and it was of this woman who probably didn't even know how to be a proper translator, because she just literally made up things. Like Lee Jordan, for example, who is the twins' friend. In book 1, for some reason, in the Russian translation, Lee Jordan was a girl. And then suddenly, he had a sex change in book 2, randomly with no explanation. I don't know why the translator decided that Lee Jordan was going to be a girl. Maybe there were no pronouns used or anything in book 1, because like he wasn't such a prevalent character then. I don't know, but it was weird. And Neville's toad. Neville had a toad in book 1 as well, didn't he? And in the Russian translation, the toad was a tortoise. And I was just like, what? Why would it be a tortoise? How would we just, what? But on that note, on the note of animals, just like stuff that doesn't quite make sense in Harry Potter, like there's a lot of them. I watched this YouTuber, her name is Murphy, She is a booktuber. She does like book discussions, over like recommendations, not tutorials, what do you call them? Reviews. She does reviews, and just in general, she's like a fun YouTuber to watch. I quite enjoy reading, so I just turn her on and like I listen to her when I'm doing something. And she is currently rereading Harry Potter, which is also what prompted me to reread Harry Potter, and what indirectly also prompted this Harry Potter bracelet series. So shout out to Murphy, she's amazing. I'll leave her channel in the description. But what was I saying? Yeah, so she's rereading the series, and she's doing a series of reviews, which are like gush reviews, and she also does a series of videos where she talks about just stuff that doesn't quite make sense in Harry Potter for each of the books. And the older I get, the more, like when I was reading it as a kid, I didn't pay attention to this kind of stuff, but the older I get, the more I realize, and now I realize that I'm out of time as well. But yeah, one thing that I definitely want to say is that on the topic of animals, the fact that Ron had a rat. Why did Ron have a rat? You were specifically allowed to have a toad, an owl, or a cat. Why was Ron allowed a rat? Like, how is that compatible? I don't know, but if you're interested, she does have this series where she talks about all the inconsistencies and stuff. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this bracelet turned out. As I said, it is a little bit wider, it is a bit longer than I would have preferred, but that is just what it turned out to be. And now let's head into the super fast time lapse. So the rules to win any of the bracelets are exactly the same. I didn't want to just do a giveaway, so I decided to do a competition where you guys can express yourselves creatively. All you have to do is you have to make a bracelet representing your house. And that can be any bracelet of any pattern. Alpha, normal, you can even create your own designs. You have full creative freedom. The only requirement is that you should be able to clearly tell what house you're trying to win for. And the house you make a bracelet for will be the house that you are competing to win the bracelet for. So as I said, to enter you need to make a bracelet, take a picture of that, post it to Instagram, tag me in the post so I can see it from my profile, and add the hashtag #NotWithMasha. If you don't have Instagram, you can also email me your pictures, but please try to use Instagram first, as that will make it much easier for me to access the pictures. This competition ends at the end of January. I'll be announcing the winners in a community post and also on Instagram. If you ever forget the rules, they will be on each of the posts for the house bracelets on my Instagram account, in the description of all of the videos, and also on the community tab here on YouTube. I won't necessarily be judging the bracelets by how pretty they are or how well they're made. Theoretically, someone who entered with just a chevron could win. Not saying they will, I'm saying they could. The main aim of this is just to have fun, really. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Definitely have fun if you're going to be entering the competition. I post videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I'll see you next time. Bye!